The Israelis hacked an app, Iranians sabotaged tens of thousands of phones, and Russians hacked a go-karting racetrack. Also, a couple of Amazon's data centers were blown up. Let's take a closer look at everything hacking related over the past couple of weeks during the war in Iran. Before a single missile was even fired, the hackers came first. The US Cyber and Space Command disrupted Iran's communication and early warning systems, providing cover for more than 100 aircraft to carry out the first wave of attacks. Unsurprisingly, they're not telling us how they did it. The only clue we have comes from interviews with US officials on how they did something similar last year before sending in bombers to take out Iran's nuclear sites. Like any computer system, military systems run on networks. By taking out one particular router or server, you can effectively take out the whole system, at least temporarily, but don't bet on them telling us exactly what piece of equipment they targeted. Shortly after missiles started raining down on Tehran, phones were bombarded with notifications, not from the government advising people to take shelter, but from an app called Badei Sabah. It's an Android app that Iranians use to plan their prayer times, around the football apparently. It's got 5 million downloads and is pretty popular among the more religious people in Iran, who are way more likely to be supportive of Iran's regime and exactly who Israel and the US wanted to send a message to. Help has arrived. Anyone who joins in defending and protecting the Iranian nation will be granted amnesty and forgiveness. 2 weeks into the conflict, it doesn't look like many people have taken them up on that offer, but these messages were blasted out for 30 minutes, with the app somehow being hijacked in the first PSYOP of the war, the digital equivalent of dropping leaflets on Allied soldiers at Dunkirk. No one has taken responsibility for the hack, but given the timing here, this coinciding with the strikes, there are a couple of suspects. Also in PSYOPs, over the past couple of weeks, there have been several claims of Iranian TV being hijacked to broadcast speeches from Trump and Netanyahu. It's hard to verify these claims, as it could just be some guy casting a YouTube video to his TV. Plus, verification is all the more difficult because the whole of Iran has been experiencing connection difficulties lately. On day one of the war, Iran disconnected their entire civilian population from the internet, simply because people who can't communicate can't organise. Internet blackouts are incredibly common in Iran, with them often having their own Wikipedia pages. But this latest blackout is into its 20th day, making it the longest shutdown in Iran's history. There was a brief glitch in Iran's filtering system, but the blackout remains. Whilst the assassination of Iran's supreme leader was achieved through very conventional means, without hackers it wouldn't have been possible. According to the Financial Times, nearly all the traffic cameras in Tehran had been hacked for years, with their feeds being relayed straight to servers in Tel Aviv, allowing the Israelis to surveil the supreme leader's compound, mapping out day-to-day movements, with one camera providing an angle that was particularly useful, allowing the Israelis to track and build profiles on security guards simply based on where they like to park their cars. Phone networks had also been hacked, which helps the Israelis confirm that the supreme leader was going to be at his compound at the expected time. Before sending in the missiles, the Israelis disrupted cell towers in the area, preventing security guards from being able to communicate, and receive advanced warnings of the 30 bombs that were heading their way, which ended up killing the supreme leader, and the compound is now listed as temporarily closed on Google Maps. For various complex geopolitical reasons that far exceed the scope of this video, Iran is not happy with their Arab neighbours, Jordan being one of them. The country maintains a reserve of wheat, big enough to keep the entire country fed for 10 whole months. It's managed by this company, and Iran decided to make them a target. Thanks to a weak password, Iranian hackers were able to remotely break in and access the industrial control systems that are used to manage the silos storing the wheat reserve. Hacking industrial control systems is somewhat of a speciality for Iranian government hackers, having hacked into water treatment facilities multiple times over the past few years. This time around, Jordan's National Cybersecurity Center said that the hackers tried to sabotage the reserve by messing with the temperature controls, but before any damage could be done, the intrusion was detected and the hackers were locked out. This marks the first time ever that a US tech company's data centers have been targeted by a military. Amazon AWS reported on their service health dashboard that 3 of their data centers in the Middle East had been impacted by objects, 2 in the UAE and 1 in Bahrain. Those objects turned out to be Shahed drones, part of a much larger barrage which Amazon says caused sparks and fire. They really make the whole thing sound like some minor corporate inconvenience. In reality, this is what a Shahed drone attack looks like, and in trying to extinguish those sparks and fire, they caused a bunch of additional water damage to the data centers which only amplified the damage. The resulting outage affected over 100 AWS services, and it knocked offline 2 zones in the region. This was a bit of a problem because AWS is only built to withstand the loss of 1 zone. This goes above Amazon's redundancy plans, and they've been advising customers to migrate to other regions altogether. As a result of the sparks and fire, outages of banking apps in the area are thought to be a direct result of the strikes, and the disruption seems to be ongoing, but it's unclear what the latest update is, as Amazon have stopped providing public updates. On March 4th, Israel announced that they destroyed a compound in eastern Tehran, which, among other things, was home to Iran's cyber warfare headquarters. To what extent this knocked out Iran's cyber capabilities isn't clear, but it didn't stop Iran from launching their most devastating cyber attack of the war so far. Stryker is a $132 billion American healthcare company that makes a variety of surgical equipment. They have offices around the world and employ over 50,000 people. But on March 11th, their employees took to social media, venting frustration that their work phones had somehow stopped working, having remotely been wiped. Login pages on company portals had been defaced with the logo of Handler Hack. On the surface, these guys are a pro-Iranian hacktivist group, but given just how skilled they are, it's thought that they're really just a front for Iranian military intelligence. On their dark website, they claim to have wiped over 200,000 systems, including servers and mobile devices, stolen 50 terabytes of data, and forced Stryker offices in 79 countries to close their doors. This attack wasn't done with advanced wiper malware, but rather facilitated by the fact that Stryker uses Microsoft Intune. Intune allows companies to monitor and control whole fleets of devices used by their employees centrally with a single dashboard. It's meant to improve security, enforcing security standards for all devices used within a company. But Handler managed to compromise an admin account, probably with just a simple case of phishing. This gave them unlimited control over Microsoft Intune, which includes the ability to remotely send wipe commands. This button is typically only pushed when a phone gets lost or stolen, but here it was used en masse for tens of thousands of company devices, causing total chaos, with Stryker publicly admitting that they have no idea when they'll be back to normal. But they are assuring people that their actual medical devices are perfectly safe to use. Afterwards, Handler Hack claims that they wiped 12 petabytes of data and have already begun leaking some of those internal company documents, saying that they targeted Stryker out of revenge for the US military's alleged airstrike on a school in Iran that ended up killing over 100 children. In the past couple of days, Handler's ClearNet domains have been seized by the feds, but they're still very much alive on the dark web. It's not just state-sponsored hackers getting involved. The hacktivist side of things has been incredibly busy. Cyberno reckons 84 hacktivist groups are currently active in the war, with the vast majority of them aligning themselves with Iran. Among the most active is a group called 313 Team. There's several write-ups on these guys, and they're one of the few hacktivist groups mentioned by name in mainstream media. Just like most other hacktivist groups though, their operations almost exclusively consist of DDoSing some website for an hour or two, claiming victory before moving on to the next target. So pretty basic cyber attacks that rarely have much of a real-world impact. There are exceptions, like a couple of days ago when 313 Team attacked Microsoft Exchange. This did result in actual connection problems for a few hours, which Microsoft acknowledged. From their Telegram posts though, their DDoS attacks only often last for an hour or two, which really didn't sit right with my British cynicism. It's long enough to boot a website offline and generate some headlines for yourself, but not long enough for the attack to cost you much to carry out. My cynicism was vindicated when they announced that they were sponsored by a DDoS for hire service, which is actually really smart marketing when you think about it. Everyone needs sponsors, I guess, which is a great segue for my sponsor, but I don't have one today. Moving on, we do get get the occasional website defacement from 313 team, but if you read past the headline and take a look at the actual victim site, it's often just something irrelevant, this one being for some restaurant in Kuwait, and judging from the Wayback Machine, it doesn't look like the website was ever really even live in the first place. A few Russian hacktivist groups have gotten involved and aligned themselves with Iran, the most well-known being No Name. But again, I couldn't really find any impactful operations to speak of really. They did recently hack a car wash in Romania, and let's not forget the breach of a CCTV system here in the UK belonging to an indoor go-karting racetrack. That's about it for this video. If you learned something, make sure to hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.